opportunity to talk to you guys today. I'm Mrozowski. I'm Managing Director of Silicon Hill Ventures. Pretty much 35 years of experience in growing from software engineering through creating successful and not so successful startups. Now investor in different portfolios of companies, including the fintechs, life science, and so on. So I'll be
I understand that your son's a very successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, at least that there's something good in the family. So he's just about to become a first unicorn in the family. So he's outdoing that.
Unicorns really exist.
Pardon me?
Unicorns really exist. So fantastic. I think I've got Tom Chi and Klaus Stockeman on, and Jimmy Liu is with us. I don't know about Rupam, but we'll try to hunt him down. So why don't you guys get started? Thanks so much.
Yeah, sounds good. So today we'll be talking about opportunities in healthcare, and I would like to start, by introducing the panelists, and then hopefully we get Rupam join us shortly, but let's start with Dr. Chi, and let's hear him introducing his fund, his Polarity Medical company, and then see what it is that he's doing, and then we'll hopefully catch up with Rupam.
Hey, greetings. It's good to see you in person, Art, and everyone. I don't think I'll want to take a whole lot of time today. I know we want to catch up on time. What we're featuring these days is the Safe Touch UVC, where we have, I don't know about Apex Predator, although we do have one in the room. I like to think of what we're doing as being an invasive species, and what we're going to do is just disrupt the market or bring it into the next evolution for door and light switch hardware, which sounds like, oh my God, is this door and light switch hardware? Where's your briefcase? And are you going door to door? But what we've actually done is we've innovated in a way that no one else has done globally. And that is that we have UVC technology, which is enclosed in light switches and door levers, pushes, pulls, railings, elevator buttons, and we're able to sterilize in 6 seconds. And that would mean that we come to the threshold to where we disrupted the DNA, and then things like MRSA and COVID can no longer reproduce. So one of the big problems we have is not just with COVID, which we hope would go away, and that would be the end of an industry. But in this case, that's not so, because we're seeing $200 billion and over 1 million people killed each year from hospital-acquired infections. And since 23% of MRSA is found on the entry door to a patient room, and they can't just keep wiping constantly, and these 222 nanometer UVC lights can't do it properly because of shadows. So we've solved the problem, and we're working with some of the largest corporations in the world. And what they've told us is that in their attempts, it took them almost 2 minutes to sterilize, and that they also don't have battery solutions. And we have a number of technological innovations and multiple patents pending, and we've solved these problems. Ta-da! So I'm just going to walk you over and show you a couple things right here, since I'm actually doing this all from Android. Here, if you can see, is a battery-powered unit, and that is a switch plate cover. The blue light that I think you should be able to see is UVC light, but it's only 4% visible, so it's 25 times stronger than that. Here is a lever, which you can see we have a patent pending rotating mechanism that allowed us to go from 24 UVC LEDs and that great expense down to 6 UVC LEDs. And our chemist who worked for 3M for 30 years in UV has validated these, as well as Boston University, which has shown that in 6 seconds, our UVC chips do indeed sterilize COVID. And we know that MRSA is the same amount, which is 5 millijoules per centimeter squared. And here we have one that's set up just to flash, but we can do that in a more concentrated fashion of 6 seconds. So anybody got any questions?
Yeah, well, let's go through the introductions initially, because I was going to go the round robin and actually having a little bit of an introduction and then talking more about the product. So,
Oh, Arthur, I apologize.
oh, hey, no
I
problem.
thought you were
It's
trying
all
to
good.
and then I would jump off the roof and everybody be happy.
No, it's all good, Tom. I think we'll find. I guess that Rupam is not here. Is Rupam here? I guess not. Okay, well, Jimmy, since you're standing there on the podium in the right place, you are the managing partner and director of R3 investments. So let me hear about what it is that you're doing.
Sure. Thanks, Arthur, and thanks, Marty, for the invitation to be here today. R3 Bio is actually an operating company that seeks to incubate, invest in, and also support category-changing companies in the regenerative medicine area. So you're talking about gene therapy, cell therapy, tissue engineering, and we're targeting to raise $100 million by the end of this year, focusing on projects that actually originate from the Harvard Stem Cell Institute and the Harvard affiliated hospitals, as well as startups in the Boston life science community, and from leading academic and research centers throughout the US and possibly internationally too. So with our special relationship with Harvard, which is at the center of probably the most intense concentration of biomedical and biopharmaceutical research in the world, we're able to identify many good opportunities from those sources. The Harvard Stem Cell Institute, HSCI, has over 325 faculty members. It has 40 plus companies that it has originally funded. And some of these companies have become public companies, and you probably have heard of some of these companies, including Moderna, which as of today had $171 billion market cap because of the coronavirus vaccine and future products stemming from that. And then also Intellia Therapeutics, as well as CRISPR Therapeutics. We currently have 50 million committed by a cross-border venture firm into R3 Bio, and we have another 20 soft circle to hit our target of 100 million later on this year. The anchor investor is a firm called Panacea Venture, which is founded by a former general partner of Vivo Ventures and Kleiner Perkins, China. And so I've known this gentleman, James Wong, for 10 years because we were served on a board together in a Chinese-based clinical laboratory testing service company. We have 3 managing directors, one of which is the current executive director of the Harvard Stem Cell Institute, Brock Reeve. The other partner is Mike Barati, a serial entrepreneur who has founded several successful companies. And me, background, I've been in tech and healthcare investing for the last 20 plus years. I basically helped found the venture arm of Acer Computers. We started with a $40 million fund that invested in enabling technologies in the US. First investors in a company called iRobot, the little Roomba that moves around your house to clean. And then also an early investor in a company called Harmonix Music, also out of MIT, which were the creators of Guitar Hero and Rock Band. So I joined W.I. Harper, which is a cross-border VC fund, Greater China, US, and started to focus on healthcare investments and served on the board of a cord blood banking company and cell therapy company, as well as on the boards of diagnostic companies, healthcare service companies, and life science companies. So I'll get into R3 Bio in more detail later, but thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Jimmy. Let me introduce somebody that is actually in my same time zone. From Berlin, we have a Klaus Stockeman. Managing Director of Peppermint Partners. And let's hear from Klaus.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur. Nice to meet you all. And I was listening to the previous panel with interest, and I liked the notion that venture capital is now going global. What for me was surprising that, you know, the digital meetings, Zoom and Teams, what have you, obviously kicked that off, that suddenly the venture market became global. So we are a Berlin-based healthcare fund. We invest in mainly in medical devices, digital health, and selective biotech projects. We do invest predominantly in Europe. However, we flip some of our companies into the US when we feel that it is the right time. And I want to encourage the listeners, also the VC colleagues, to start investing more in Europe. You will find a lot of different arbitrages, whether it will be entry valuations, capital efficiency, and test market. And after the COVID win of BioNTech, everybody knows the vaccine. You can also see that there is a great lot of technology there. We're currently launching a new fund, which is a two vertical fund, predominantly focusing on ophthalmology and cardiovascular. And of course, we are also reaching out for US co-investors on deals and also on LPs. I'm doing venture capital since 21 years and did also a lot of investing in the US.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Klaus. And then we have the Rupam Shrivastava. I hope that I don't mispronounce your name, who is a general partner of Frontis Capital.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur, and good afternoon, everyone, depending on which time zone you are. I founded Frontiers Capital about a year ago, and we run three separate fund lines. One is a early stage venture fund. The other one is a public investing fund, investing in publicly traded stocks, and the third is a crypto fund. And the underlying theme amongst all the funds is that we invest in exponential technologies. We invest in technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, AR, VR, quantum computing, and healthcare, primarily biotech. And also the intersection of frontier and exponential technologies with healthcare. So applications of artificial intelligence in healthcare, robotics in healthcare, and so on and so forth, AR, VR in healthcare. And that brings me to this panel. In healthcare, we are focused on early stage disruptive technologies. We understand technologies; those are the risks we feel extremely comfortable taking. We typically write the first checks. We can even enter in the friends and family rounds. The kind of companies we target on the early stage side are typically led by professors coming out of universities or PhDs or scientists, research scientists coming out of perhaps a large company, large healthcare company. So we like IP-driven companies. We like research and scientist-driven companies. We are unafraid to write the first check, take that technology risk, and we like capital efficiency, of course, as many investors do. So that is our focus area. These days we are looking at telemedicine, new ways of drug development, more in silico, data-driven healthcare applications, AR, VR in healthcare, nanomedicine, those kind of areas. So with that, I'll pass it back to Arthur, and happy to take any questions subsequently.
Sounds great. I just wanted to move the conversation a little bit into the specifics of the individual projects or lines of interest. So I just first wanted to ask actually Jimmy Liu from R3 Bio about the regenerative medicine, and because that seemed to be like the main topics of interest, and what is the regenerative medicine and why is it the right time right now for us to invest in it?
Thank you, Arthur. So R3 stands for regenerate, repair, and replace. And we've really defined regenerative medicine to include all aspects of gene and cell therapy, tissue engineering, biomaterials, and enabling technology that enhances the gene and cell therapy process. And we've also included working on small and large molecules that stimulate or activate the endogenous repair mechanism of the human body. And so you can see that even though we are focused on a specific area of life science and healthcare that we know well and we understand well, but this general definition of regenerative medicine is quite broad. So we're not going to have a lack of opportunities to invest in the best companies coming out of leading academic and research institutions. So why are we kind of excited about this opportunity to invest in this particular space? Well, according to the Alliance of Regenerative Medicine, this is going to be a banner year. All the trend point up. And if you look at, for example, the number of companies focusing just in the space, you have about 1,200 companies worldwide in regenerative medicine. The number of approvals have increased year over year. And then the clinical trials, 2,600 clinical trials in this space globally, whether it's from academic or research institutes or in industry, have continued to grow from year to year. And so the clinical trials, the 2,600, are in areas such as CNS, the central nervous system, ophthalmology, oncology, infectious diseases. And then in phase 3 trials, we're seeing a lot of progress in diabetes, heart failure, and rare genetic diseases. And so there are lots of examples of progress made in specific areas, like, for example, large B-cell lymphoma. Instead of waiting to see whether 2 or 3 current standard of care approaches have failed before trying these therapies, now you're starting to get earlier and earlier approaches in dealing with these cancers. In the CRISPR area, the Intellia Therapeutics, which is a Harvard Stem Cell Institute company, actually is working on a particular process to limit the harmful growth of liver proteins. And this has actually, in the most recent data, surpassed what the current standard of care has achieved. And in terms of induced pluripotent stem cells, iPS cells, that has advanced over the years also. And this is actually a promising focus because of the fact that iPS cells can really grow indefinitely and can differentiate at a large scale. So basically, you can actually reproduce these cells off the shelf in order to apply them in cell therapies. And so the interesting thing is that from a venture capitalist standpoint, you look at a lot of these financial figures in terms of what's happening in this particular area. So this half year, regenerative medicine total financing has reached $14 billion compared to 19.9 of all last year. And then there are 20 IPO companies to date compared to 14 last year. And venture financing in this space increased 77% from the year before during the first half of this last year. And so if you look at the public markets, publicly held cell-based immuno-oncology companies outperformed the NASDAQ Biotech Index. I think the index achieved since 2018, achieved 152% increase. But the cell-based IO companies that are publicly listed actually achieved 232% increase. And then, for example, the M&A activity in the CDMO space, the contract development and manufacturing organization space, that help facilitate these therapies to come to market. That has reached about 10.8 billion in the first half of 2021. So all these things, looking at it from a venture perspective, gives you sort of the sense that these trends are not going to reverse. It's not going to stay stable, but rather increase exponentially over the years. And it's the right time, in my opinion, and also other folks who are entering into the regenerative space, that this is the right time to seize those opportunities. So.
Well, thank you very much, Jimmy. I would like to talk a little bit about something that is closer to me, because I'm physically right now in Europe, and Klaus is doing some kind of interesting leverage of the European scientists and trying to make a very interesting proposition of starting out utilization of the scientists locally here, and then moving the IP and ideas over to the global markets, mostly through the US, and then also attracting a bigger chunks of investments. So I just wanted to have Klaus explain to us on how that business model works.
Yeah, so as many of you know, of course, in Europe we also have very excellent science, and I don't want to repeat the BioNTech vaccine. That was certainly a one-time off for the next couple of years. What we do is, and it's a bit similar as Rupam described, we're working very closely with universities early on in the beginning and look at disruptive technologies. And I want to let you know one example. So in 2015, we came across a company who has developed a sensor where you can measure the intraocular pressure. For you who know glaucoma, you know that intraocular pressure is a relevant parameter to watch out for disease progression. And this sensor was developed in Germany with an institute called Fraunhofer. It was picked up by the company. They developed that sensor from a large version, which was in your car tires to measure pressure, into a small version to become a medical product. So to make a long story short, it's now a class 3 device, which is certified in Europe. It's on the market, on a test market, and the company obtained a breakthrough device designation in the beginning of the year, formed an Inc., and now is going to start operations and clinical development in the US. The entry valuation, I wouldn't tell you that now, of course, was very attractive. We had everything needed to bring the company to that stage, but now when the company starts to getting closer to be commercial, then the US is an interesting playing ground for such a company. We not always, Arthur, we flip not always a company. Sometimes we just have a subsidiary and even manage then that we get US money into the subsidiary or in the mother company in Europe. And we think for a European-based fund, it's quite attractive because you have a valuation arbitrage, which is significant. And if I compare valuations in Europe with the ones on the West Coast, then they are at least 2 times, 3 times, sometimes 4 times higher. And the value creation, or the value which is put to a company, is significantly steeper than in Europe. So from an investor perspective, if you have the right timing, this kind of model is very attractive. And I could give you tons of other examples where that has panned out nicely. What I'm missing is also that US investors with the large funds actually really discover Europe. I know a lot of the guys are doing it, but when we go out and looking for early stage, I hardly see any American VC on the ground and trying to go into early and, for example, join the journey I just described.
Well, thank you very much, Klaus. I just wanted to turn the microphone and camera to Rupam and kind of better understand of what type of recent projects are on his radar screen.
Thank you, Arthur. So as I said, we operate in the intersection of exponential technologies and healthcare. So one example is artificial intelligence in healthcare, and specifically in drug discovery. So one of our most recent investments is in a company called Occam's Razor. The company has been founded by Dr. Katharina Walls. She used to be a researcher at Stanford under Professor Fei-Fei Li, and she's one of the pioneers of deploying artificial intelligence in biotech and related fields. So what the company does is it reads a multitude of research papers, basically every research paper that has been published in drug discovery, and figures out patterns amongst the research papers, figures out how a research paper published here in the US might have some links with a research paper published somewhere in Germany. And what does that mean for the researchers? Typically, 15 years ago, the research world was small and you could collaborate with everyone. Now it is so much, there's so much getting published. It's very hard for one researcher to keep track of everything. That is what the company hopes to accomplish, figure out newer molecules. One research paper finds a molecule. Some other research paper might have an adjoining molecule which may be treatable, which may help treat cancer, and that link may not be to both the research paper authors, but this company can figure that link out because of the linkages of molecules, the things that they can do. So we really like this company. We have invested in the early round, and they are already working with big pharma. Big pharma molecule and drug discovery is important to them, and the kind of expansive view that Occam's Razor takes really helps in comprehensively looking for drug molecules. Another interesting one is the application of robotics. So there are a lot of experimentation happens through stem cells or certain kinds of cells, or gene therapy requires a lot of input, which is the exact same kind of cells, because you want to see how those cells react to certain reagents and certain molecules. So how do we replicate those cells properly across thousands and thousands of experiments without losing the quality of cell culture that is desired by the experiment? So creating extremely consistent cell cultures is a huge task. A lab in San Diego might do something different than a lab in New York, and that's why the experimental results might be very different, and people might publish opposing results because the input to their experiments was not consistent. So this company challenges or takes on that challenge to create consistent cell cultures to be distributed wherever the researchers want them, and they utilize robotics and computer vision type technologies to achieve that. So we like them. We like them a lot. This company has been formed by Professor Michelle Lee. She's still a professor at NYU in a sabbatical to launch the company, which is exactly the kind of companies we like. There are a few more projects, but those are the kind of that would give you a good idea of how we are looking at the intersection of artificial intelligence, robotics, AR, VR with healthcare. We are getting very early into the companies where most of the company value is in the IP, in the disruption, and the company is backed by someone really smart, a professor, a researcher, and that gives us, from a financial perspective, that gives us a lot more safety. So we invest in a company. Of course, we want the company to become $1 billion company, take over the industry that it's targeting, but things do not always go that way for all the investments. We are all in the venture world. We know that. So sometimes companies struggle. And in those cases, our companies get acquired because of the talent that the company has, because of the IP that the company has. So many times our companies, if they are struggling, they get acquired because typically there's a professor behind it, there's a research scientist behind it. And that is why we believe that while the returns for our companies in the good case would be fabulous, even in the bad case, you'd get a lot of our money back. In fact, we might still make 3-4x on our investment because the acquihire valuations of these companies are still $25 to $50 million. And while we are getting in sub $25 million valuations. So hopefully that gives a good background of what we like to do.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Rupam. I really appreciate it. And talking about, the actual company that it is, an opportunity in itself of solving a problem of getting and picking up the diseases from the door handles. I would like to give the word to Dr. Tom Chi from Polarity to kind of finish up the introductory continuation of telling us about his product.
Yeah, well, I would want to try not to kill you with information since I jumped in so deeply on the first run. And thank you, Arthur. And Rupam, I love what you're doing there. Klaus, I wanted to mention also that it looks like the first hospital that will be going in will be in the Benelux region. So we've seen a lot of response from Europe. And in fact, we have some large partners there that look like they're going to be big players here. So, and also, by the way, we have a modification to intraocular implant, which we think is going to be successful, as well as also a method which reduces the time that it takes to separate the epidermis from the subdermal tissue when it comes to wound care and tummy lifts and facelifts and emergency surgeries that require a large amount of tissue to be separated quickly. So, but it looks like, I mean, we see it as really quite disruptive. We know that we're going to kill pathogens in just a few seconds, 6 seconds, and some take a very short time longer. And then it's going to change everything when it comes to hospital-acquired infections. And so we've seen a lot of interest. And basically, I'm wondering if anybody has any questions or might like to chime in on anything. And if you don't, that's fine. But then I could answer that and then give some room for you all.
Tom, where are you guys of intellectual capital, and you have patents, and what's your current burn rate?
Well, we have 7 patents pending, and they're, obviously for a patent it needs to be unique, but some of them are quite extremely unique. And by the way, our contract engineers are the same who created the lightsaber for Disney, as well as, they've done dozens of UVC devices and et cetera. We have more patents that are being filed. And as far as our burn rate for finances, it's not very high because it's well managed and it's more based on practicality. We get the job done, and we have numerous devices that are market ready with others that are waiting. And it's also nice because besides just door levers and light switches, we also have other things that are, even when we license out or sell off divisions, is we have the shopping cart handles and the elevator buttons and a number of other applications. See, that was me pausing. You'd think I was considerate instead of always talking.
Well, thank you, Tom. I sort of disappeared for 1 second here. I lost the internet for whatever the reason. Wow.
Well, if anybody's in healthcare or and interested in being a strategic partner, that's what we're going to be looking to do. There's going to be thousands and thousands of hospitals that will be demanding the technology as soon as it shows up in this one university medical center. And then, like I say, we're with some of the biggest players, and what we're doing is we're modifying their really exquisite devices and then having some OEM manufacturing and placement. So that makes it easy. And then we also have a retail side too. And other than that, I think I pretty much covered it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I actually have a quick question for Klaus. In terms of like maintaining the IP, say that you develop the product and IP and all the patents, let's say in Europe, how easy? I mean, are your ideas, your startups actually converted later on for the purpose of the investments into like a C corporations in the United States, or the investors they still have to invest in as investors into the European structures?
I think this depends. We have done everything. If it's done early in the lifetime of the company, the flipping the company and transfer the IP physically, if you like, is much easier because of tax reasons. There are also other ways around it. But I want to shed some light that it's not a big deal to invest in a German company or in a UK-based company, to be honest. Or you have an ink and you license the technology to that ink. So there are many different ways to do it, and you can spend a lot of money to US lawyers. They tell you what the best structure would be. So that will not be a roadblock to it. It just have to make sense. And one important thing is the timing. On the case I mentioned, we are very late already in the process of the company. So most likely in that one, we just want to attract US investors investing in the German entity. That's not impossible. It's a bit complicated, but if somebody likes the case, then that's not a hurdle. But for new investments, maybe we would consider do it a bit earlier, but that comes also with a cost and structural burden to a startup company. You should not forget that we invest early, and depending on how quickly the company is developing the technology, then we can make the call whether it's the right time to do that.
I just wanted to kind of circle back because I don't know, Marty, how much more time do we have?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, great. So yeah, I wanted to ask Jimmy, from all of the technologies that you currently are working on, and and how do you structure your deals, say, and what is your, I understand that everything is coming from Harvard and it's pretty much Boston orientated, and then your most of your investments are concentrated around the stem cells, right? And
Cell, gene, yep.
and then are you combining all the stem cells and on your regenerative technologies with other technologies of actually gathering all the data from say the DNA research that is being acquired by from other fields to make the sense out of this?
Well, I think the people that we back understand the overall ecosystem well enough in their own particular research areas. We're not, my last two investments have also been prior to R3 Bio. We're in AI-driven, machine learning-driven drug discovery companies. We don't use necessarily some of those particular AI components. However, if you are investing in a drug discovery company, you're going to use some kind of AI. You're going to use some technology that will help you gather the relevant data, whether it's generated internally or from a third party to help you get to compact that time frame to get to that clinical stage. But we are within the regenerative medicine space, are agnostic in terms of the kinds of companies that we invest in. And so, we have a whole list of deal that we are looking at Harvard. And it's not exclusively at Harvard because we have relationships here in the Bay Area. UC Berkeley, we're looking at a deal that is actually focused on biomaterials that enable cells to be manufactured at a much larger scale, and then materials that help the engraftment process once the cells reproduce and you inject it back into the body, then they are much more efficient in terms of helping those cell therapies move forward. We're looking at another deal out of MIT that is outside of the Harvard network, And it's a very promising macromolecular pro-drug platform that is researching on fibrosis. And so, but the Harvard pipeline is extremely strong. And so we're looking at diseases that, you can use cell therapy or genetic engineering to deal with diseases like memory loss, deal with skin healing, deal with being able to go ahead and have various tissues within your body be able to regenerate. So, all those different projects, they have their own form of identifying the data that they need in order to obviously do their jobs better. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I actually have another question for Rupam. If you can tell me, currently in your stage, are you looking more to enhance your capital and get more partners, or you're looking for bigger deal flow, or you just wanted to announce to the world that those are the projects that you're working on? What is your kind of like main goal of participating in the family office network?
Thank you, Arthur. Yes, we launched a year ago, so we can add more capital to our funds. Our deal flow is exceptionally strong. We have a network with all the universities, so I think on the deal flow we should be fine. But we are always on the lookout for some smart disruptive companies. We are fundraising, and we can add more limited capital partners, limited LPs in all our funds. Actually, the public fund is not open now, but the venture fund and the crypto fund are open, and the venture fund has the focus of exponential technologies, their applications in healthcare, their applications in technology and tech. Those are the areas we focus on, and look forward to any investors who are interested.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then Klaus, your objective will be also to find partners to enhance your $70 million fund. Is that also something that you're considering, and that's your objective from today's conversation?
Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is to encourage other GPs in the US to look into Europe and co-invest. But on the fund side, yes, indeed, since we are now have focused on the two vertical funds, some of you might know funds like Regenerative Ventures or the X side, which focus purely on ophthalmology. We have decided to do it with two verticals for many reasons. And we, of course, now also want to reach out for US LPs, knowing that the challenge to get them into European funds is higher. But I think, as I mentioned before to you, I think there's a lot of arguments why you should consider at this time now to maybe also place some bets into European venture funds.
Okay, great. And Tom, if I may, Dr. Tom, ask you real briefly, because I think that we're kind of running out of time, to find out, what's your next steps? What are your objectives from coming out of this panel? Tom disappeared on me.
I think Dr. Tom said he's leaving, or he had to leave.
Oh, okay.
Put that in the chat.
Not a problem. He's a busy guy.
Arthur, we can wrap up now.
All right. Well, thank you very much for participation. It was a great discussion. Thank you, Marty.